Well, hi there once again. Michael Murphy here, Leaderscape. We're in the middle of, in one sense, probably one of the most disturbing, destabilizing seasons that the church has had in contemporary history. And on the other hand, a time of unprecedented opportunity where people need us to stand up like never, ever before. We've been presenting a whole lot of resources to you in what I believe are answers to many of the questions that lead pastors that we're connecting with have got all over the globe. And this is the first of a series that I want to do with some of my friends that I know are working through some of the issues that you are, just to maybe provide a little bit of a mirror, a little bit of reflection, a little bit of a look in and hear some of their journey, even over the last week or 10 days. I'm with a couple of my favorite people from Oasis, Los Angeles, California. And California right now is in somewhat of lockdown. And I think they might have shut the border. It's one of the big hotspots in the US right now, New York and Illinois. And Julian Lowe, the man, the myth, the legend, not long been officially lead pastor of Oasis. So good to have you and a couple of your amazing team members with you. How you doing, Julian?
I'm doing well, doing good, hanging in there,
Wow.
and just quarantine like everybody else.
Yeah, you're quarantining your car though. Your comedy with pastors in car.
I am. I'm quarantined in the car. I went from the house to the car, so these are both my shelters, and I'm in one of my. I'm doing well. I'm prospering. I own 2 shelters. Car, it's going great, man.
Hunker down. Hey, when you first got saved, you living in a car at one stage many years ago?
I'm not much above that, you know. It was the size of a car. It just didn't have wheels. It was a futon. It was great. One of the best experiences.
Returned to the seat of the tribe at another level.
Yeah, it was great.
Your story is quite amazing. You were serving Pastor Philip Wagner for many years faithfully, and you have not long been the lead pastor there at Oasis. How long is that now?
Just 5 months. Last week, 5 months.
And you had some help of people through the transition who gave you some indications of what might happen. I guess you mentioned in terms of preparing you for the worst. What was some of the counsel that you received?
Well, basically the counsel was, transition, you have to be prepared to lose people. Although it's exciting, it's a great blessing. The giving's going to go down. You lose people nearly 100% of the time. And so while it's an exciting time, you have to be prepared that you are going to lose people. Giving's going to go down. And that first year is going to be a challenge. It is for everyone. That's not a knock on your leadership. It's just the way that it is. So we were prepared for that for sure.
I would confirm that. I mean, I've hardly ever seen a transition where that doesn't happen, but the experience in the last 4.5 months was very different for you. What actually happened at the end of the day?
Well, it was very different. I mean, towards the end of last year, we transitioned in October. So you could feel the excitement in the church growing from October to December. But right around the middle of January, where we start getting into our series and vision and all of that, the church really started to grow. And for about 5 weeks straight, we were 5-6 weeks straight, we were up by about 400 or 500 people a Sunday, every Sunday.
Wow. And the finances were strong and things were...
And the finances were strong, up 32% from the year before. The quarter, first Q1 of 2019 compared to Q1 of 2020 was up 32%.
And the church was filling up, and now you've got an empty church building.
Now it's empty. It's all gone. Just like that.
Wow. If you're just joining us, I'm with the Oasis LA crew, Pastor Julian Lowe, Nelson Luna, his executive pastor, and his creative director, Sam Cantillon. And we're going to have a bit of a conversation about a case study about how they've negotiated what is really uncharted waters and unprecedented time in our contemporary history of church life. I believe it is the dawn of a new era for the church as we know it. How have you, in your own mind and heart, Julian, negotiated this even the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think the first thing that I did was I grieved the momentum that we had lost. And I think that I took a couple days
That's real.
to really grieve. I told my team I didn't really have any answers. I'd get with them in a few days, but you're talking about we were up by 400 people and the coronavirus hit. We were down 400 and then another 400 the following Sunday. So an 800 person decrease within 2 weeks. And so all out of my control. And so I really had to just take some time and just grieve. I was frustrated and, I was upset. And if I'm being honest, I was also a little, hurt, to use that language, like, God, why would you allow me to take over this church, experience all that kind of momentum?
Wow.
Just to be here where there's a pandemic and now I can't get people to come into the building. And so I did take a couple days. That was the beginning of it. I took a couple days to just grieve and wrestle with my, emotions about that.
Wow.
That was the first thing I did.
Thank you. Thank you for your candor, my friend. And I think you're not alone there. And I think that's going to resonate with many, many lead pastors around the nation there and around the world. I think we're all grieving and there's an uncertainty. And I think even if I can just, chime in off that, even as we communicate to our people, you might have been brought up in a faith culture and, of course we are people of faith. That's what pleases God. But if you start out with a faith confession, you're going to leave a lot of people in your wake bewildered because they just lost their job or worried about getting the coronavirus, or they're now housebound. And they're in a little, 1 or 2 bedroom place in the middle of downtown LA. And so to start with an empathetic communication and then move people to a faith confession, I think is a really important thing. So thank you for your honesty there. So how'd you get yourself out of that? Because again, I think beyond the beyond the papa in the pulpit, lots of guys come this Monday and really every Monday will be struggling with some of those same thoughts.
Yeah, well, one was I remembered a conversation that you and I had. You called me a month or so ago and you asked me how everything was going. And I said, it's weird because everything's going so well. I typically am a leader that when I get, promoted, it is for a crisis. And I don't know if you remember me telling you
I do.
That I don't know how to, it feels weird because I've always been promoted in crisis and now it's blessing. And I feel like my calling has always been to respond to a crisis. Every time I've ever been promoted, church division, issues with ministries. And I said, so it's kind of weird because there's no crisis. And a month later, here we are. So I remember that conversation that you and I had. And then I realized that this is exactly why I was promoted, because God knew a crisis was coming. Yeah. And I needed to step up and lead. And then the other thing too was just reminding myself of what one of my primary gifts is prophecy. And prophets throughout the Bible were raised up in crisis, and just try to remember how God is gifted me. And it was time to just move forward and seek God and see what he wanted me to do. So that's really how I got out of it. It was just the presence of God and prayer and try not to react, and kind of like that resolve to not move or strategize until I knew that I had been encouraged by my time with God and that I was hearing from God. And so that that was about 4 days in approximately before I called the team and said, I think I'm ready to start talking about and making some decisions. I'm in a place with God that I can do that.
You say that as if it's normal. Of course, everyone does that. And it's my experience, both personally and connecting with some amazing lead pastors around the place. Sometimes we get so busy that the very thing that gets squeezed out is the God, the Zoe life of God, the overflow. And I think that excuse is being, once we get over this triage period, that's been squeezed out, taken out from under us. And really, there is no excuse for not getting into God's presence. And we're trying to provide best practice and so forth. You know, even this very video is about, you know, case studies, so people can think that through. Already, I know you've got lots of friends, guys going, oh, yes, I feel you. And so I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but there's no substitute for you, Pastor, getting before God, getting on your face and hearing what he has for you. Before I go to Nelson on some of the strategic things and the considerations of processes and shifts in that, what were some of the things that you felt to share with the staff? And I had the privilege of being on that call, I think, and a bit of a fly on the wall. But what were some of those things? How did you brace them? You had about 40 people on a Zoom call, I remember, 40 or 50 people, your key team and your staff. Can you remember what you approached them with?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that we were trying to refi, you know, a loan, and one of the banks wanted to know what my resume was. And I remember Nelson asked me, hey, the bank wants your resume as a pastor. And I'm like, well, what is my you know, resume? And so that would impress them. I probably wouldn't be much, but one of the things about my resume with my team is that they know that I'm going to go to God and that I am going to pray about it. And so one of the things that I remember saying to the team was, I don't have all the answers, but I promise you, I've been with Jesus about this, and that he's with us and that he's for us. And so that was really the overarching theme. But to be honest, it was my team coming to me with the wisdom, which was really encouraging. And I think that we all did our part. And one of the things I did tell the team is that the org chart wasn't going to work, and that the five-fold ministry, where the gifts of the Spirit in leadership needed to really be, you know, present. We really needed to hear from God. We needed to have great pastoring, great evangelism, great teaching. The apostolic has to be working in full. So we kind of like made a makeshift team, if you will, where the expressions of those gifts of the Spirit, so we didn't have any stone unturned, where we felt like we had the word of the Lord, we had the systems and strategies in place to execute the word of the Lord. And we kind of did it like that. And I wish I could say it was me. I knew that this wasn't 2 weeks. I did tell them that this is not 2 weeks, that our church needed a new vision, and that we had a church planting meeting. We didn't have a 2-week meeting. We had a church planting meeting. And this was before all the government came out. We had a church planting meeting and had a brand new vision for what was now going to be Oasis at home. And so we started from scratch, vision, budget, the whole nine.
Nelson,
and
go ahead. Sorry, Julian.
I was just saying that helped because we weren't adjusting how we do church.
Yeah.
We launched an entire new church.
That's genius, in the sense that I think one of the things that's going to cause many of us to struggle, if we try and I know it's a cliche, but if we try and put what is essentially new wine that God is doing in an old wineskin, and we don't shift our philosophy, out of philosophy flows the processes that will get that done, and ultimately the practice or the praxis that will execute it. And without that, I think we're kind of be harking back to the old and pining in a way. And if this is 4 months or 6 months or 10 months, we have an opportunity to really take ground here. And I'm fired up. I really am. I'm not just hyping it. You know, the number 20 in Hebrew is characterized by the moniker, you know, the number.
Yeah.
I can't think of a word, but that literally is like a cupped hand, and what you cup your hand to receive something, often something fluid from God. This is 20.
Wow.
This is 2 cupped hands, and I really feel like I'm carrying, in a sense, a multiplication heart and mindset, a double. And I believe for you, Pastor, if you're watching this, I'll go back to our friends in a minute, but I want to declare over you right now, at least double the reach that you currently have is going to be your first portion in this new season. If you're able to pivot, if you're able to release your people, if you're able to, because we'll get over the technical stuff in a minute. At the moment, you got, I was talking to Pastor this morning, the first 2 attempts to go online, their first 2 advertised service time didn't work, Sam. They didn't work. So they didn't get on to the 3rd time. And so lots of guys, if you got online, you're watching this, you're ahead. But that we'll get over that. And then we need to get about releasing our people into what God's called. This is a prophetic moment right now of release in Jesus' name. Nelson, incredible thinker and strategist. From your perspective, obviously your pastor and your team declares we're reinventing. That's not it's a difficult thing to do, but you can be over with that meeting in an hour, and then there are all the knock-on implications of that. So how are you going without any sleep at all over the last 4 or 5 days?
Man, I've had a couple hours. I have the privilege of my wife being part of the team as well. So, when I come home and I'm like, man, I'm really feeling it. I get to hear, how can I help? And so, she's the ultimate cheat. I owe a lot of honestly, everything we're doing, really, Julian's just kind to give me credit for it. Most of it's really just Julian and Amy making me look great.
What have you done? How did you approach it? What have you done? Because again, a lot of our systems almost, a couple of people have asked me, what about Growth Track? Chris Hodges himself a couple of days ago said, look, just put it aside for a while. There's some guys taking Growth Track online. Yeah, that's legit. You can give that a shot. But we're in a different mode right now.
For sure. I think, honestly, Julian kind of starting it out saying, this is a church plant, really set the stage for us to not be kind of married to a lot of the old. And one of the things that came up, I think, right away when we were all talking, you stole a little bit of my thunder. I got to be honest, Michael, because, you mentioned really getting back to our core ideologies. And one of the things that we said, like, as we're planning a church, what's the thing that sets us apart? And the conversation actually started there. And so, part of our vision is that we would stay connected, because connection has been something that set our church apart in Los Angeles. It's a very transient city. A lot of people have moved here. They're potentially only going to be here for a year. And, something we've heard over the 35-year history of our church was that when I walked in, I felt like peace, and I felt welcome, and I felt comfortable. And so really we started with the question of, if that's a thing that sets us apart, how do we do that digitally now, virtually? How do we start to create it? And it was from that question really where it started to come. And so while I think, there's all these like practical things that would come, I think that would probably be one of those key moments for us that set us apart, is that we started with, well, who are we? And then from that answer started to say, then what can we do?
Yeah. So what did you do?
Well, the org chart kind of basically got shredded. It doesn't exist anymore as we understood it. And really kind of from Julian's vision, he really keyed us in onto 4 things, which was, really kind of meeting needs in our city, creating connection, caring for the people of our church. And, it's around that we really started to see things form. A phrase, kind of 1,000 micro campuses came out of that we took to our team, which was really, we want to deploy essentially 1,000 campus pastors out of our congregation to help us create connection digitally. And so, kind of practically is we've set out to create our team around that goal, that mission of really Oasis into as many homes as possible, 1,000 hopefully, with people taking stewardship of their own little kind of a dumb phrase that didn't stick that I tossed around was kind of adopt a flock. Really kind of taking 8 to 10 people and taking personal accountability for caring for them, praying for them, and potentially even meeting their needs, recreating the Acts Church for all intents and purposes.
Awesome. I coined a phrase the other day that likewise hasn't yet taken off. I'm still praying and fasting out of it every day. And that's taking it to the peeps. Taking it to the peeps.
You know, around Easter that gets confusing, but you know.
Yeah.
So funny.
Anything to add in there, Julian?
Yeah, I mean, the 1,000 micro campuses are huge because, you know, let's say 500 of those people, we gave them the responsibility of saying, hey, this is not about when you see our content or when you see that we post about services or we're live streaming. We're not asking you to comment on it and like it. We're asking you to share it. So your responsibility is to get this link into as many hands as possible. And so that we can broaden our reach because online and network is a numbers game. How many people can watch this? And once we determine how many people can watch this, then we dwindle it down and say, how can we make it healthy? So that's really what we did. We really just allowed people to share and gave them responsibility. You are responsible for as many people to watch this on our services as possible. And
this is
and
live,
that's been happening.
is this live or is this the encore after the service? Is that the...
This would be live. So if we are streaming at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 1 p.m. on Sundays, a bit of in the old days, you call it a street team. We got the idea from a book launch. So when people launch books, you know, they get together a book launch team and they send them media content to share. And so it's either share the first chapter, read the first chapter, share it. So we basically created an online launch team for our Sunday services. That's what those micro campuses are. 500 of them would be to care for people. 500 would be to literally promote the service and get the content out there. A bit of a street team concept. So
love it. Sam, obviously, as you know, you're a consummate worship leader, songwriter, and you've got a really good head and heart for not only technology, but the outcome of technology. That is effective communication of where people are at. What are the implications for you, and what kind of thought processes have you gone through as we just unpack from a case study point of view here?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I just have grown up in church my whole life, pastor's son, all that. And so when this thing started happening, it was just an immediate shock of this is, I'm not saying, I definitely haven't seen everything that there is to see, but have seen a lot. And this was it was just the craziest. I've never seen this. I don't know what to do. There's no playbook for this season. And so we started just looking at the tools that we have and what we had ready and what we need to start working on fast. And so, yeah, I think, you know, we were really blessed to be set up to stream already. And so, you know, it really just kind of, for the first couple of weeks, it's been pretty simple. Now we're limited to gatherings of 10 in Los Angeles, and I think, you know, a lot of places. So, so it's just been touch and go. We're trying to find what can work. We're trying to sort out what's the best. But the biggest thing that's a part of, you know, this new vision that we're running with is maintaining human connection, or preserving human connection. So we're not just trying to get a stream, we're not just trying to get, you know, but really in this time, people are isolated and they're in their homes. And so we need human connection. So we've just been trying to do that. We're trying to get people reaching out to each other, talking to each other, hanging out with each other virtually. We're not, and that the fun thing about this for us is we're not, like, it's not perfect yet. We still have a lot of work to do with small groups and websites and infrastructure for all of this sort of stuff. But what's happening organically has been really cool. People are just, you know, they're gathering online naturally. And there's definitely, we've got to reach people who aren't connected naturally. But yeah, we've seen good numbers. Like, we're generally encouraged. We're upgrading gear where we can. Watching for shipments outside of our house, trying to make sure the gear arrives, you know, it's every level. But yeah, and then as far as, you know, social and digital. We're trying to just have a healthy blend of some fun. That's the biggest thing. And Julian's one of the best for making sure we always try and have more fun.
Yeah.
So for an example, not to go too far into a detail, but
no.
One of our worship leaders posted a video of him lip syncing in front of a TV to Graves and Gardens by Elevation Worship with a broom and a looked like a vacuum pole as a mic. And we, immediately, I didn't even tell our social team. They posted it. We're all cracking up over it. But just trying to, like, when we see something fun, we're trying to jump on it. Julian used to have a puppet series he did in the children's ministry, so we're thinking about
rebuilding that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So like even like that, to jump in, I started out as a preschool pastor. So one of the jokes is going to be like, I had to take my old job and I'm going to do a puppet show for kids online. And so it's stuff like that preserves human connection. So we're getting people that are watching us. And I think a lot of times, we go straight to the spiritual, faith over fear, but sometimes it's laughter over fear, or it's human connection over fear. Sometimes I'm not afraid because I'm too busy laughing. And I think when we hammer the spiritual stuff, we hammer that nail into the board. We have to say, is that nail hammered into the board already? What is another nail that's not hammered in the board? And one of the things for us has been human connection, laughter, and fun. And I've tried to do that as well, and our team has done a great job with that. So
go ahead.
The other thing we've just tried to do is, we've tried to laugh a little bit, and we've tried to just kind of just call on people's connection to what it used to be like a little bit, not too much, but just the emotional, the connection of it. Like, again, that human connection. So one of the phrases we started saying is, this is still us. So like, no matter where we are, we're still who we are. The other thing was, I can't remember off the top of my head here, but we're distant, but still connected. Like, just some kind of phrases that people can start to remember that might become hashtags or phone wallpapers or things like that, that just kind of, because we have to, the phrases and branding we had for Growth Track that we'd say, it's how you make a big church feel small. That doesn't work anymore. Like, we have to kind of reinvent a lot of this phrasing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what we've been trying to do.
I was quoting you earlier on, I think today or yesterday, Julian, about where you really felt like one of the things that you needed to do was make, the church feel like a family. Just unpack just that little kind of revelation that God gave you as we entered this new season.
Well, I think, when I started kind of reading through the Bible, and I start seeing things that, Jesus was supposed to be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. I started looking at things that, in the Bible, that you start to see the narrative change from John chapter 10, my sheep know my voice, to the sons and daughters will prophesy. There started to be a bit of a family thing there, where Jesus would say he was the only way to the Father. And I started thinking about this idea that I have a job because as a full-time pastor, and I get paid, and people need me so much primarily because they don't have family, especially in LA. 60% of our kids don't have their dad in their home. And so I really started to lean into that and started to see that when we stopped having Vision Sundays, if you will, and we called them family meetings. We started to change the language to what we did and what we said. And so for me, that was huge, where people wanted to be a part of a family. And I had to recognize that there were other churches that out there that were really great churches, and Oasis distinction needed to be family. And so it was more me trying to find the distinction of what other people weren't providing, but there's so many great moves of God happening. But what is the thing that if you come to Oasis, what is our distinction? And we chose that our distinction was going to be that you could find family. And so in that distinction, we were able to make our way through the mud of really, really great churches that were coming to LA and launching. And honestly, some churches who had things that we couldn't compete with, or I didn't feel like we wanted to because they were doing such a great job at it. So what was going to be our distinction, if you will? So
beautiful. That's so good.
Yeah.
Nelson, you just unpacked just some thought. If you, Pastor Julian mentioned before, just the whole fivefold and kind of that replaced a bit of the org chart. Where's the rubber hit the road there? Like in terms of, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers, as pertains to this new season.
Sure. So we kind of, Julian really felt like going back to the fivefold ministry. So if you think about it, I'm asking the question, like, how do we create departments in this new way of doing church? Org chart is gone. How do we create some structure to it? And so, you really kind of, the way I've kind of unpacked that for myself as we prepare to really kind of revision our team into this is that the apostle really becomes our operations and administrative. That's the easy one. The evangelist is really our content and creative teams. Yeah. The pastor is our online campus care. So we've got a little bit of hierarchy there. Some of our team would care for it, and you create layers so that we can really effectively care for hopefully a congregation digitally of, let's say, 10,000, right? Yeah. The teacher would be our hosts partnering with the teaching. And then actually, interestingly enough, I felt like the prophet really starts to speak beyond the teaching, but speaking to the kingdom investment and generosity, casting vision for a season beyond what the reality is showing us right now. Yeah. And so really kind of taking that framework, that model that we have from the Bible and saying, well, if we're going to rebuild our church, as Julian and God is telling him, we need to rebuild it based on that. How do we really start to kind of create departments out of that, if you will?
So good.
Can I throw something about that? Because what he said was really important. The prophetic is about casting vision beyond what we see right now. Yes. And so we knew that it wasn't a church adjustment. So we knew that God was asking us, when this is over, we will have quarterly rest Sundays, just like this one, where we shut the whole church down and do church at home. Once a quarter, whole church. We knew that once this was over, one Sunday a month, we're going to gather 200 online pastors and ask them to stay home and invite people from their community to their home, because we knew that it would be an easier invite to get someone to watch online at your house than it would be to come to the church building. So we shaped the vision beyond the governor's mandate about what we could meet, and we pulled out of it, God, if you're not allowing us to meet, that means you don't want us to. That you want us to do something different in the future, and you don't want us to do it now, so that we can press in and ask what we're supposed to be doing differently. So it wasn't just vision about how to get through, but the vision came from God. What do you want us to learn from? And I realize, I feel like if the vision is just, we'll get through it, and we don't learn from it, the vision won't take us beyond when this is all over and we can gather.
Wow. Because I think one of the things that is going to be so difficult, honestly, right now, one of my key roles is to remind people they're going to get through, be encouraged, God's got this, but very few people are thinking beyond, because everyone's so focused in the here and now. The jolt has been so strong and so severe in the minds of many. It's like, I just hope we can survive this. That's where many of us are landing. And I just think even that encouragement, Julian, to envision your way out, in a sense, prophesy your way out of this. Because prophecy is speaking out that thing that's in the heart of God, that we're not yet seeing, but that he already is there. And it does require a fair bit of energy and discipline and focus to lasso his future plan rather than being encumbered with the here and now. That's very, very powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Julian.
If you look at our vision is we exist to create online content that builds faith in Jesus, ignites generosity, demonstrates serving our city, and the fourth one is, oh my gosh, preserves human connection. So even when we look at our online content, we're saying, does this preserve, huh?
Nelson, could you dive those down in the chat? That'd be great.
So preserves human connection. So then we're going to show a video of Sam playing with his kids at home and reminding our men of God and our women of God to be the best parents that they can be in this season. Preserve human connection. Ignite generosity, which means that there are going to be a lot of people who can't give, but there are also a lot of people who can give more. So what can we do? We immediately got to get the message out of what we're doing with money, because what people are doing with the money makes people want to give. This is a fact. So our first Sunday, we communicate, this is what we're doing. And so that ignites generosity in people. And we've had people who aren't even believers give. When we put out that we were helping single parents with childcare whose kids are stuck at school, I mean, that we got so many reactions on that. So preserve human connection, ignite generosity, build faith in Jesus, and demonstrate serving Los Angeles. And so everything we did came through that vision. And we believe that that vision is what we're going to be about moving forward. And then also too, we are tangibly looking for how we can be a blessing to other churches in our city. And so that was something as well. So that part has been huge, that we believe that the vision that God has given us, that this time of not being able to gather for what God wants to do, even though it's from this negative thing of a virus, that God can use this to bless us.
Yeah.
That we're not riding this out. We're not riding the wave. The church is the wave. And as pastors and leaders, we can't ride the wave of a pandemic into wherever it drops us off. We are the wave, that move of God. And I think it's very important to have that nature. And might I say, it took me 4 or 5 days to get that to that place. Don't plan anything, don't do anything if you're not in that place. And trust on God's grace to be able to give you the fruit from seeds that you did not plant because you are too discouraged to talk about what your next steps are. But until you feel like you're the wave and you're not riding the wave of a pandemic, I wouldn't even have a meeting with your team. Your team needs to see that strength coming from you. For sure.
That's powerful. I have got a couple other questions, but I want to stop right there. And I'd love Julian to pray for every lead pastor that's watching this, and pray for, in a sense, God to open heaven over their lives, for them to rise up on the inside. And I love that. Don't ride the wave, be the wave. Like, we are the wave. I love that. I love that. Would you do that, Julian, right now?
Yes, I really want to pray. You know, I know there's a pastor watching this, and the enemy is telling you that you don't have what it takes to lead your church out of this. And I'm praying right now that God would speak to you and tell you the truth about who you are. And I pray that right now in Jesus' name, that every pastor under the sound of my voice, they're praying about what to do. And I really believe they need to switch their prayers to, God, remind me of who I am. That you would have your Gideon moment where God would say, mighty man of God, as you are threshing wheat in your church, trying to figure it out, that you would hear the voice of the Lord that says, mighty man of God. I feel that so strongly for pastors, that God is trying to remind you who you are, and you keep asking him, what do I do? He's not going to tell you what to do until he can remind you of who you are. And every pastor in this season who knows who they are and is confident who they are, divine wisdom is going to flow from heaven. The Bible says in Ephesians 2:20 that the foundation is built on the apostles and the prophets. And you have someone who is hearing God that is a part of your kids' team, that is a janitor, and they don't have a seat at the table. And I'm seeing right now that there is somebody on your team and in your church that if you give them a seat at the table that they didn't have, start to ask around, who hears from God? Who flows in the prophetic in my church? And you ask them some questions and tell them what you've been praying about and have them pray for you. Just break down the walls of the org chart, bring different people to the table. And I believe that God is going to give you revelation and wisdom that is going to not just sustain you and get you through it, but that is going to prosper you in the middle of a pandemic. And I really believe that's so strong. I'm praying for not just sustainment, but prosperity and favor in the middle of it all. In Jesus' name.
Wow. Thank you all very, very much. We love our Oasis family and just are excited about what God has got in this next season. And if you're watching this as a lead pastor, this is just one very powerful case study from the prophetic, interfacing that to a fresh mission and vision, getting God's prophetic philosophy on that. I love that. We're not riding this out. We're not riding the wave. We are the wave. And we are encumbered so easily with what to do, and God's maybe wanting to reveal who we are. Love you, Julian, Nelson, Sam. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll chat very, very soon. God bless you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
You too. See you soon.